Hey, everybody. Great Saturday to you. I hope you're well. Here is the news. I'll get right to it. Last year, Zenny 62 Media revealed that Oakland A's officials, paced by President Dave Kaval, had met with Tropicana Hotel representatives for the past 5 months to the date last year, my post. The focus of which was a mixed use development that included a ballpark for the Major League Baseball organization. I remarked to anyone with an earshot or not that it looked like the Oakland A's copied the Howard Terminal tax increment financing model and brought it to Las Vegas. In other words, Howard Terminal is actually a giant mixed use development with a ballpark, the Oakland A's privately owned ballpark, at its center. Now, I had no concrete proof to back my claim other than what I had been told by people who were in those meetings. That's it. So that's, I said it's circumstantial evidence, but really it's not really just circumstantial evidence. It's also source evidence, but I can't reveal who my source were. But now there's more news that brings the picture into clear focus. On November 16th of last year, 2022, a Nevada legislative bill called Assembly Bill 10 was introduced, and according to the available documents, quote, authorizes the designation of a tax increment area for certain transportation and housing reinvestment purposes. Now, while that may not appear to have anything to do with a ballpark, keep in mind the new law allows a land use setup where the property tax from a privately financed ballpark, among other buildings and land, would pay for affordable housing to be built in that designated area. So basically, if you designate an area, let's say the Las Vegas Festival Grounds, including Circus, that new tax increment financing zone would include the assessed value from Circus, the current value of the land, as well as what is built on it, including a ballpark, mixed-use development, including offices, affordable housing, and transportation, okay? This legislation sets up the possibility of it being financed thanks to this bill. Now, let me continue, all right? Now, it's much like the still not created Howard Terminal Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District in Oakland and what it's supposed to do. Now, the 20-page legislative work, and you would say, where is this thing, Zenny? And I will show it to you in a moment, calls for the allowance of the creation of a new tax increment financing zone such that any land or structure within the area has its property tax collected by Clark County on behalf of the city of Las Vegas, which actually wrote this bill, and then placed into a tax increment account. The money from that account is to be used to retire bonds issued to pay for the specific transportation or affordable housing or both development project. Save for the land use restrictions that Nevada legislation, that Nevada legislation that I'm talking to you about is very much like California law SB 293 Skinner, named for its author, California Senator Nancy Skinner, and signed into law by California Governor Gavin Newsom, October 11th of 2019. The law created by Senator Skinner, working with Oakland Athletics President Dave Kaval and Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, and off an idea I shared with Dave Kaval on April 4th of 2017 during a scheduled 4 p.m. phone call, has, it would seem, led to Dave, and I'm here making a supposition, okay, pushing for a Nevada law, which is necessary because standard tax increment financing rules in Nevada do not allow for revenue collection to pay for affordable housing and transportation projects. The mixed-use ballpark development concept that has been under construction in Las Vegas needed new legislation made that would allow it to happen. Enter AB 10. Current tax increment financing rules in Nevada parlance are designed in such a way that unless it's for or in a tourism infrastructure area, even then it's for infrastructure. It's not clearly written that it can be used for housing or transportation. And so it's logical that if you're going to take a tourism infrastructure legislation and then superimpose it with this tax increment legislation, you can then have far more flexible use of tax increment financing in Las Vegas when this bill is eventually passed. It has not passed yet, and I expect that it will happen this legislative season, which kicks off in Nevada February 6th of 2023. And right after that, and I would be surprised if it didn't pass, it would then lay the groundwork for that. And you would say, why not do a straight sports bill? And I'll give you one word answer: politics. Because the need for affordable housing today is so acute that, and so powerful nationally and in particular on the West Coast, that a number of projects that were, for example, trying to obtain or get in under what's called the private activity financing road were quite literally moved out of the way by affordable housing projects. And so, because there is an acute need for housing that everyone can afford to live in. So, because of this gigantic political push toward affordable housing, I personally believe it would be impossible, or all but impossible, to achieve any kind of legislation that would assist in the aid of a ballpark without some attention paid to the construction to fill the giant need for affordable housing in Nevada, let alone the United States. So that's the latest news right there. And you would say, okay, what's the situation with this photograph? This came from Ben Garcia's website. Ben Garcia is the Los Angeles architect who came up with the first proposal to turn the Tropicana into a ballpark, and it looked like something that came from outer space, a cool ship that came from outer space, right? This is another concept that he had been playing around with that I thought was something you hadn't seen and was even more provocative and could very well be a kind of design that winds up in Las Vegas. I'm not saying the A's will use it. I am saying the Athletics have seen it. They already have their design. I don't know what it looks like, but it's, if you will, out there, not for public eyes to see. Now, let's get a look at the legislation before we close, so you can see that it indeed, just basically that it indeed does exist, and it is right down. I'm sorry, there it is, and here it is. Voila, right there, folks. There it is. And then I will go get it and zoom in on it here, so you can get a better look at what this is supposed to be. And I will zoom in here and zoom in yet again. And I believe one more time should do the trick. There. Assembly Bill 10, Committee on Government Affairs, on behalf of the city of Las Vegas. Okay. November 16th, 2022, referred to Committee on Government Affairs, summary, authorizes the designation of a tax increment area for certain transportation and housing reinvestment purposes. Fiscal note, effect on local government may have fiscal impact. Effect on the state, yes. Now you would say, what kind of fiscal impact would that be? Easy. The property tax that is collected normally goes to Las Vegas and to some percentage of Clark County, to a percentage, Clark County and other what are called taxing agencies to provide services. This one goes into, in the Nevada and Las Vegas parlance and Clark County parlance, a special tax increment account. And that is used to retire bonds that are let to aid in development within of buildings and structures and transportation infrastructure within the tax increment area. Okay. So that is a net initial loss of revenue, but the anticipation is that the new development will far outperform what is there now in terms of sales and use tax. And then eventually, when this area goes away, property tax as well, that benefits the city and the county. Now, here's a little kicker. It doesn't include sales taxes. If hotels are built there, it doesn't include the hotel tax. Only property. So there is a return to the region even during the existence of the tax increment financing zone's life, which is 30 years. What this legislation calls for. By contrast, SB 293 Skinner and indeed all the family of enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation in California calls for a 45-year bond period. Now, then you can see it reads here, an act relating to tax increment areas. Nope, there's no legislative author's name attached to this, which I find quite interesting, the way that they do these things in Nevada. And then it reads, the people of the state of Nevada are represented in the Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. At Chapter 278C of NRS is hereby amended by adding thereto the provisions set forth as sections 2 to 5 inclusive of this act. And then it says that transportation and housing reinvestment zone means a tax increment area. Then it says the boundaries are coterminous, describes the boundaries, a specific benefit by a transportation project, transportation improvement project, or mixed use, multifamily, or affordable housing development pursuant to sections 3, 4, 5 in this act. No, there is nothing in the language that says that the affordable housing development cannot be part of a mixed use project, all right, that includes a ballpark. There's no language in this bill that eliminates the possibility the athletics may benefit from it in terms of building a ballpark mixed use development. Nothing, all right, at all. There's nothing here that points to that. John Akala, how you doing? John says, hello, why haven't we heard any news from the AASCG sports group anymore? Supposedly they wanted to try and get a WNBA team in Oakland. And Eric Darius says, I have to say Zenet's an ugly ballpark. I think it's rather cool. But, I didn't show it for that reason. I showed it because a lot of people haven't seen it. Now, also, it points to a more of a mixed use than the other one. John, let me take that question. I don't know why you haven't heard anything from the AASCG other than they don't feel they have anything to report. You have to take a look at it from this perspective, and that we just went through, okay? We just went through a situation where we have a new mayor, and we're in a place of instability. Let's count it up. We have a new mayor, Shang Tao, but then come Tuesday, and because of a problem with the way ranked choice voting is done, not ranked choice voting itself, but the way it was done in the Alameda County Alameda Registrar parlance, all right, because of that. And first reported here is Zenny 62 Media, the County Board of Supervisors has voted to finance a recount of the vote. That could mean a situation where we have votes that say, hey, look, Shangtown should not be mayor-elect or mayor. Now, you would say, why did I put it that way? Because something else has to happen. Court has to be introduced in a way of a filing that says, hey, look, and Lauren Taylor would have to file it, saying, I won this, she did not. And then Shang could counter and say, wait a minute, I was seated, all right? Now, the ramifications there are unprecedented. I don't know where that's going to go, but the county of Alameda has set that up. But what does that spell? What's the so what behind this project? The so what means this. From the athletics, it means instability, because not only do you have the unknown, the possibility that the mayor may be forced out of her seat, okay? You also have confirmed, actually introduced by Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, now former, when I interviewed her Tuesday of last week, you have the specter of the looming specter of the loss of the project manager, Molly Mabern. Who's going to replace her? Even Libby says she doesn't know. All right. Libby did not leave a place where Howard Terminal had staff that anybody could point to and say, they're going to be here for the next 2 years. We have them in place as part of an organization called the Howard Terminal Financing District, right? Or Howard Terminal Public Financing Authority, all right? And we have them funded at least for the next 2 years to work on this. That's not there. I've said before, no one would listen. I kept saying it, not expecting anybody to listen, but knowing doggone well I was right. And so, folks, here we are. Howard Terminal is, for all practical purposes, rudderless. Howard Terminal is, for all practical purposes, rudderless. You don't know if the A's have enough money to continue paying her or another project head. No one has stepped forward to say, Molly Mabern is going to continue. All right. That's outstanding. You have the mayor's situation on top of that. And then you have 5 City of Oakland department head openings. So all of this spells what? Instability. Instability to an organization like the Athletics. And if you think about it in terms of what the commissioner, Major League Baseball Commissioner Bob Manfred, said about the deadline, it pushes us to the very real possibility that we won't even make that deadline in 2024. Because not only do we have the problem of seating the leaders, if you will, but we still don't have the Public Financing Authority process even started that should have been started in 2019. And how many times have those of you who followed my channel heard me rail about that? A lot, okay? I have called this, like someone would call balls and strikes. We're in trouble now. And what's the answer? Shang Tao has to step forward and be decisive about what she wants to do without respect for her own future. This is where we need a leader. And because of the way the organizational structure of the city is designed, all roads lead to her, all arrows point to her. She's got to, really should have done it last week because it's chaotic. Make that statement, because I know the media, like Casey Pratt, asked me to make a statement regarding the loss of the grant. I never counted on that grant because, again, you're looking at, if you target $2 billion of new construction for the base year for the redevelopment area, or as we call it, the tax increment area, or the enhanced infrastructure financing district area, all right? And then you can definitely count on an average 4% rate of growth per year for an assessed value for 45 years. Heck, the average has been double that, all right? So my point is, you can count on that. You're looking at $1.6 billion. You cut that in half, that's $800 million that you can bond against right up front. And I know there are people out there who don't like that kind of thinking, but you need to know the math and understand the risk of being able to obtain that kind of money in situations like this one where that money is needed, and it is. All right? It is. Others have done it. Heck, that's how Allegiant Stadium was built. All right? That was a mathematic guess. A risky one, a guess. I didn't like the debt coverage ratios, as you know, another story. But I digress and I continue. And Eric says, hey, Zenny, the news over the last week has been pretty disheartening. Do you think it's the A's, just the A's putting on more pressure on the new mayor, or serious? Al, what are the A's supposed to do? All right. Look, the Athletics are not the ones that know governance better than the mayor and the city of Oakland. That's not the way it's supposed to go down. Libby designed this so her face was the symbol. How many times did we see Libby talking? Did you ever see the chairman of the Howard Terminal-Ballpark Public Financing Authority? No. Why? There's no Howard Terminal-Ballpark Public Financing Authority, so there's no chair. There's no leader. There's nothing that you can point to, and I've said this again and again and again. I've told you, all right, there's nothing you can point to. I even told Libby this, that says the future of Howard Terminal is solid beyond an elected official. This is not the way things are done. It's wrong. So you all keep expecting the city to turn water into wine, and it's not happening. And a lot of you get mad at me for saying, well, the A's should just leave. But I'm saying, look, why do you expect the A's to waste their time with this when the city won't even get its own act together and it's so politicized, over-politicized, that there's no end in sight for this ridiculous stuff? It's one thing for me to say Oakland needs to get its act together, but it's quite another thing for Oakland to want to get its act together. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oakland doesn't want to get its act together. Now, I know I've lost about 5 of you, fine. But hey, look, to quote Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. You can't. What comments have the new mayor-elect said about Howard Terminal? If that's true about Libby, that's terrible for not having someone to continue the process of Howard Terminal. Well, she says she's all for it. She says the usual things that you would expect an elected official to say. You know what? But my point is, the elected official should not be the face of the project. All right? The elected official should not be the face of the project. It should be a group of people called the Howard Terminal Public Financing Authority. Not just the chair, but the people who sit on it, some council members, some county representatives, some community representatives. That is the organization we need to start now. It was the organization we need to start in 2019. The city's been screwing around with this for too long. It's right there in enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation. All you have to do is read it. That's it. Okay? This stuff is ridiculous. And for you all to allow it to go on is become criminal. And you expect the city to do something, and it's right there. It's written right there in the legislation. We have a problem today where people take office and they care more about saying that they're progressive or conservative, which nobody really cares about, to be honest with you, okay, than how they are going to make your city work better. And that problem has found its way into the matter of the Oakland Athletics needing a new stadium. All right. The politics has killed this thing in Oakland, and no one wants to accept it. And the people who are in the best position to do something about it are politicians. And so they turn it to whatever it is they have on their mind. Well, if it's environmental, it's this. Well, if it's socialism, it's that. I mean, come on, you know? And you guys let them talk this pablum rather than challenging them. And this, media that you expect to ask the questions has only served as a PR organization for them. That's why they like to run to them rather than come to me. All right? So we have a giant problem with no end in sight, except the departure of the Athletics, and I don't blame them. Look at this legislation that's out there in Nevada, right under our collective noses. I've been searching it for months because I knew something was going down. Okay? Think about it. The city doesn't even have anybody working for them to even bird dog this stuff. All right? They have to hope that somebody out there is paying attention. Hi. What a mess. What an absolute ridiculous mess. Hopper says Oakland was never going to get attacked. It will at some point. I've said that before. Howard Terminal isn't going to happen because Kaval is spending time in Vegas to close the details. Thank you. To be fair, Oakland isn't the only city with the problem not getting anything done. That is true. That's most of our country right now. I don't care if it's left or right. We have a problem. It's called anti-intellectualism, people. Nobody wants to think anymore. Everybody just wants to argue about stuff, their side only, and not know details. How do you explain all this great legislation that's out there that doesn't get used or read? 15 minutes to game time. I'm almost done. Or it might just be that you have an inferior product with a 50 to 12 season. That's brutal. It might be that simple. No, it isn't, because look, I have one example across the bay. What we used to call Pac-Bellpark and the Oracle Park, a beautiful place to play. Yes, one of my favorite books, Anti-Intellectualism in American Life by Douglas Hofstadter. Actually, it's Richard Hofstadter, not Douglas. It's Richard Hofstadter, okay? Not Douglas. At any rate, point is that that's not it. If you have a beautiful place to go to on the water at Howard Terminal, then you can be a true fan of the organization and enjoy it regardless of its wins and losses. The Coliseum is an old facility. It needs to be rehabilitated, period, okay? Sure, it would have been a wonderful thing if the Athletics had stayed there, and I still think that could, happen at some point, right? Or some baseball organization, not the Athletics, they don't want to be there unless they sell the team. Now, if Joe Lacob steps forward and he's happy to buy it, it's a new ball game. Yeah, no, and you know what? And pun intended, okay? Pun intended, all right? So there's the news, folks. I'll be back with more. Subscribe to Zenny62. Please join our membership club. $2.96 a month. That's it for the lower end. And we have a $24 top end that's got some special perks that go with it. All right. And Zenny62 Media was selected as one of the top 58 startups in America that have received seed funding. I just got that news 3 hours ago. All right. He says, okay, if you are the worst team in baseball, then you can fill up a brand new stadium. I don't buy the theory that you could be right. The A's would be better off with a new owner. Yeah, well, look, we determined this, Dan Rasher and I. Dan is the famed economist over at the University of San Francisco, and a friend of mine, and Cal grad. At any rate, that a new baseball stadium is worth at least 3 years of positive revenue and Buffalo attendance for whatever organization builds one in sports. That's been certainly the case. Look at how Allegiant Stadium has impacted the Raiders, even though Mark Davis is sending these signals that, hey, maybe I should move out back to Oakland. Right? He said Oakland basically was a better environment than what he's got over there. That costs money when you have people wearing red and not black. Sponsors that depend on a Raider fan base that's fervent. Ooh, bad sign, folks. All right. Did I open up a can of worms? Yes, I did. See you all later, and I'm going to get my bet out. I think the Niners-Seahawks game is going to be really interesting. I think the Niners are going to prevail in a close one. But overall, watch out for the Bucs, folks. The Bucs may wind up back in the NFC Championship game and on the Super Bowl. See ya.